Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Wisdom Happy Hour with Upend. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about, I think, the subject that's very important to most of us, and that's how to de-stress. So I know people have heard lots of different opinions on that topic, but today I'll discuss mainly about what worked for me. I'm not a stress expert. I'm just a person who's always been under a lot of stress. So I had to learn to deal with it. And I think it's some things that you can incorporate into everyday life and make it a little bit easier every day. So for me, and this, I'm a person who, has experienced burnout earlier in their career, and a person who's always multitasked and managed. And I really had to get a grip on how stress was affecting my life and my family and those around me. So, and thankfully, through Upend too, you can develop these courses as well. But today for our happy hour, I'll talk about really quick little things you can do to change your life every day, implement small little things to help you manage. So with stress, I think the first thing to do, and I would recommend to everyone, is when you start feeling overwhelmed or you start feeling a little anxious, you get that little pit in your stomach or you get the butterflies, find out what's causing them. So find out, because sometimes we react and we're reacting not to maybe that exact thing, but something that's been building up inside of us. So even though we might have reacted at that moment because maybe our child was crying and asking for something for the 50th time, or our boss moved a deadline or something similar, that might not be the cause. It might just be the one thing that put you over the edge. So what happened is with me and doing something with journaling. So every day taking 10 minutes in your morning routine, instead of scrolling through social media or instead of scrolling through the news, the first thing, take 10 minutes for yourself. While you're making coffee, while you're making tea, just set aside 10 minutes of quiet time to reflect on your thoughts. And then see if there's something creeping up in the back of your mind. That's probably the cause of your stress. So if there's something you're thinking about that's causing that pit, that might be the thing that's actually keeping you stressed the whole day. So once we know what's causing our stress, it'll be easier to deal with it. And I remember when I was maybe 16 or 17, reading Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. And the one quote that, I think all of us are familiar with is, if you can change it, change it. If you can't, don't worry about it because you can't change it. So I think that, and it's always easier said than done. I mean, we have some real things that affect you, the health of someone you love, maybe, and those things you can't change, but of course you're going to worry about them. Financial insecurity is another thing. But if that's enveloping your life, you have to manage it to make sure you're prioritizing your health and you're prioritizing. So once you find out what's causing your stress, then what I would suggest is two things. One, make a plan. Find out which of those things you can change and find out how you can better cope with it. And then number two, give time for yourself during the day to disconnect from it. And everyone has this time. I'm sure you do. And everyone can find 10 minutes a day that you can dedicate to this. So by disconnect, I mean really disconnect. Turn off your phone, turn off your TV, turn off your radio. Turn off your kids, but maybe you can give them to someone. But go into nature, go walk for 10 minutes, go meditate for 10 minutes, get 10 minutes of sunlight every day. Just switch. So find out what's causing you not to be happy, and then find your happy place. And this is something that costs absolutely nothing. It's something that just takes time and you prioritizing yourself and your time. And then you'll find out that you're probably going to reflect more and find out even more deeper thoughts. And then you're going to find yourself planning. So what you don't want to do is be in a position where you're just overthinking about everything. Like I said, disconnect. And for me, that's always been going outside, because once you're outside, you physically can't be in touch with, for me, what was causing my stress. What I was getting into is, okay, I'll disconnect, especially when it was lockdown, when it was COVID and you couldn't go outside. I would say, let's disconnect. I'm going to go watch Netflix for 10 minutes. So as we know, while you're watching Netflix, while the intro comes down, you grab your phone again. And then when you grab your phone to go check something, you check something else. And then you're back to the thing that's causing you stress. So by really disconnecting. And so what I did actually during COVID, because I couldn't go outside, what I found that physical activity really kept me off focus of what was causing me stress and onto something else. So I went into baking. Every day I was baking something. I was baking like bagels and you know, I think I started baking like different cakes and everything I get my hands on it. It was just the motions of following a recipe, like clearing my mind, following a recipe, following it to the T, and just focusing on that one thing really shifted my focus from what was going on around me. So one more thing that I would suggest, if what's causing you stress really can't be quantitated and journaling isn't helping you, reflection isn't helping you, I would suggest, and one of our teachers at Upend, Jeremy, brought this up last time, and I thought it was such a wonderful idea, but a gratitude journal. So every morning, take 2 minutes to a journal and write down what you're thankful for. And what you're going to notice is that once your mind starts shifting into finding the positive things that you want to journal tomorrow, so finding out what made you happy that day or grateful so you can put it in your gratitude journal for the next morning, your mind is automatically going to be focusing to the good. So, and I think all of us, you know, it's really easy to focus on the bad. You get annoyed at customer service, being on hold for 10 minutes, listening to that annoying little music in the background. All these little things going on, those are really easy to notice. What's really hard is maybe 10 good little things that happen to you. But once you make an active decision to focus on the really good, happy little things going on, maybe somebody you don't know said hi or said something that you wore looked nice, or said that, you know, something you said made them smile or made them think. And once you start getting into the mindset of, I'm going to journal every little thing that maybe was out of the ordinary, made me happy, your mind's going to start focusing in on that. And your mind is going to start focusing more on the good things around you. That's, I think, enough for me. I would love to hear from my friends out there live streaming and people on this call. Any questions you guys have or advice you might want? Oh, here's a question. Nobody can avoid being stressed out in today's world, and every human on earth. Is it possible to avoid it completely, or is the only solution to accept it and deal with it? Any concrete everyday solutions? Awesome question. Thank you so much. I haven't found a way, and I don't think any wise person I know has found a way to avoid it completely. And I would love, if I'm wrong, for that person to pitch in and let me know their secret. But I don't think it's possible. Sometimes not everything is a trigger. So for us, so maybe, how can I put this? A lot of people have different levels of their threshold for stress. So maybe if you grew up in a very chaotic home, or a very insecure surroundings, or just something that, you know, made you at a very young age learn to cope with stress, your level of stress management and your threshold for stress is going to be a lot higher than someone who didn't have to go through that. Now, that doesn't mean that it doesn't affect them the same way. Things that might not even register on your radar is stressful. A little change, a little need to adapt that's not going to show up on your radar is maybe going to be, you know, a very crucial event in someone else's life. So I think we can't say you can't be stressed out, because everyone has a different threshold and everyone has a different thing that makes them stressed out. So what I would say is we all need the skills to cope with it. What I found is I didn't have those skills developed really well when COVID hit. So I was able, by relying on people in my network, by relying on people that I was very close to, I was able to deal with everyday things that caused me stress. I was able to meet with them, talk to them, talk it out, get some advice, go out in nature. And then when my coping mechanism was restricted with COVID, when we were all in lockdown, I had to develop new skills. And I think that's one of the things with Upend that I would really, really appreciate is that the foundation that they give you to kind of develop these skills is, for me, really important, because it gives you the tools so that you can develop your own set of coping mechanisms based on your surroundings. If your surroundings change, you still have that really strong foundation on how to build new skills or how to improve the skills that you have for the new surroundings. And that was my number one thing, is I think to develop the skills and find out what works. Vibed or Yasmina in the call, do you guys have any questions?
No, not really. We just like listening to you. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yasmina, I would love to hear your thoughts, just because I know that, you know, you have a full-time job. You also have another job you're working with and a small little one at home. So I would love to, you know, hear about either what you found helped you with your stress or what caused your stress.
Thank you for your words. They mean a lot. Honestly, what Elvir said, it's true. I really enjoy listening to you. And many things sounded familiar to me, especially because of our jobs and kids. But what triggers me the most when it comes to stress, I believe it's also surroundings. And sometimes I cope with it perfectly, and sometimes I just leave. Maybe that's my when I have a chance. Maybe that's my mechanism. I'm not sure, and maybe I think it works for me, but it's probably something I should be working on. So if you have an advice instead of leaving, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
Does it sound familiar to you?
I've left. And I think my reaction also depends a lot on how much emotional availability and how much, I guess, just coping I have available at that time. So sometimes if you've had a relatively maybe stress-free week and, you know, everything's gone pretty smoothly, then I have time to maybe engage in what's causing my stress. So I have time to deal with it, maybe try to change some things with the people causing it or the issues causing it, try to change it. But sometimes, and I would actually say, if it works for you, keep doing it. If you're feeling overwhelmed and you're feeling really worn out and you're feeling like you can't, you just really cannot deal with it anymore, then I would just say leave. Unfortunately, with leaving, and that's what I found, is it waits for you. It's waiting when you get back. It's a very short term. I think it's a short term solution to maybe a long term problem. But I've you know, and I think it comes really also down to prioritizing. And once you start prioritizing yourself and your mental health and your mental well-being, I think some things start to crystallize. So for me, at a certain point, I felt that I really was doing all I could to minimize my stress, but it was really external. And it was actually getting put on me. So everything I was doing internally to kind of separate that stress, it was actually physically, you know, externally, I could feel it being put on me. And so I knew that, you know, I can't change I can't change what's going on around me. I've been working on myself, so I had to just make sure I wasn't putting me in that situation anymore. So what happened for me is I had a very long and serious discussion with my husband about everything that was going on, and we both agreed that the only thing for us at the time was for me to leave my job, because, and then, you know, that leads to another stress factor of you don't know what's going to happen. Thankfully, we didn't have kids at the time, but still, it was really, you know, financial insecurity. We had a mortgage. It's really nice to have 2 paychecks, but at some point, it was trading 2 different stress factors. So it was saying, the job I have is causing me so much stress that I would rather be stressed out about financial insecurity and leave it than stress out about what's going on. And it's a real decision. And you know, it's really easy to say, you know, just quit your job, but you're going to have another stress factor. You're going to have, finding a new job, which is stressful. Changing jobs is like the number 3 biggest stress factor in people's, I think it's like death, birth, having someone new, and job changes, and then divorce and marriage. So, I mean, those are always been the top 5. And so, but you really have to decide. I mean, if you've been working on something a lot and you're seeing no progress and you're giving it all you can, but you're seeing that people around you aren't changing and it's still really causing you physical damage because of stress, it's a serious discussion about changing it. So, I always say easier said than done, but it's also really realistic. And I was just fortunate enough to, when I decided to change my jobs, that another, job was right there. So it even ended up being better than I thought it would. But it was still, a very, I think even a stressful decision. So, yeah.
And now when you mentioned birth, like death, birth, and changing jobs, could you compare yourself to the times when you weren't a mother, when it comes to stress?
Actually, it's really surprising. I think it's a very different stage in life. I think before I had kids, I gave 100% of everything I had into things I was working on. Not just my job, but everything I was working on. I gave 100% to. And I think, and of course, if you're really passionate about something, that's the only thing that can cause you stress. If you don't care about something, you can't be stressed out no matter what happens. Like if you don't like your job, you don't care about your job, and you have a plan B, nothing that happens at your job, and I'm just using a job as an example, but nothing that happens that can stress you out.
Yes.
If it's something you really need, like if you really need that paycheck and you are really dependent on your performance, and I don't know, somebody's causing, you're going to be stressed out. So, but I was seeing that everything I was doing, my volunteer work, my job, I was always giving 100, and everything that would go wrong in the slightest way was causing me stress. And it was really legitimate. Like I could feel, when you physically feel stress, like I could physically feel the headaches. I could physically feel the insomnia. I could physically feel the heart palpitations. I could feel the stomach going upside down. I could feel the nausea. It's really physical, attributes of stress. And once I had kids, you're stressing about different things. So, being maybe a highly more anxious person, I remember going into an ultrasound, and my doctor said, like, the baby's perfect. And I'm like, you don't know, could be blind, could be deaf. You can't tell that from an ultrasound. Like, you're worried about something so different. And I think that once the birth happens, your life changes. So it's no longer your life. Now you're responsible for the life of someone else, somebody who can't feed themselves, can't change themselves, can't put themselves to sleep. And you become a 100% full-time caretaker. So for me, what happened was my roles switched. Everything kind of went to a back burner, and this became my priority. And then when I had to go back to work, people are depending on you at work too. And then you kind of have to, but so what happened is I began to set boundaries, which I'd never done before. I really began to set boundaries because I'm like, no, this kid, he's my number one, and I'm his number one because he has no other choice. And I'm the one that brought him in. So he has to be my number one. And I started setting really firm boundaries. So at the end of my work, I stopped answering my phone. I'm like, no, I'm not doing emails at 8 p.m. anymore. I'm not doing calls at 10 p.m. We're not doing this because now I have somebody that I'm fully in charge of. So it kind of, I guess, made me not, as stressed out at work because I kind of started taking things in stride more and taking things with more boundaries. But then you're just also adding another level of now. And everything, I think everything was going pretty well. Like I was pretty proud of myself until COVID. And then everything, just gets shaken up. And as we say, upended my whole life. So now we're managing 2 people working from home. I was pregnant with my second one. We had our first baby. He was 18 months old. We're working from home, and those boundaries I worked so hard to build up are now gone because now everyone's online and 24/7, and you have to help your coworkers because they're waiting on you. And so it ended up with, okay, here we go. I need a new set of skills. I develop the skills I have. So it's kind of, I think you get into a lull, and if you don't use that lull to develop new skills, you're not ready for when it escalates again. And we're going to go, I think we're somewhere like I am personally, maybe like midlifers. So I expect, hopefully, God willing, that we're going to have probably rest of our lives to get into more stressful situations. But I think using maybe those lulls to develop some new coping mechanisms and new stress management skills would be a great opportunity. And I think on our website, in the next month, we're going to have our Upend opening, which is a really great masterclass. It's going to talk about, what I talked about, but from much smarter people, much wiser people who've actually been doing this for like 3 or 4 decades, but also a lot of other skills. So I know people really responded to balance, and a lot of people wanted discipline, and a lot of people wanted, so they're addressing all of these in our upcoming class if you go on upend.com. But what we did was for people that don't have time, they don't have 3 weekends to do the masterclass, the 90-day wisdom journey. We actually, Upend made little mini lessons that you could pick which skill you want to develop. And they go really through in details for you and tell you, what it is, when to use it, how to use it in everyday life, and how it helps someone. So it's a really great way to figure out, what you feel like you're missing or want to work on. And then it's a really great deal. I think like 5 skills you pick with like really detailed work online at your own pace for $100, less than $100. So I would recommend that everyone go do that. Oh, another question. Another question, how to deal with stress in this exact moment? Yeah.
Breathe or what?
Yeah. So breathing work, breathing exercises. I always do like the yoga breathing. So, 2 seconds in, 4 seconds out, 3 seconds in, 6 seconds out. And I think all that comes down to, again, is disconnecting. If you're really focused on your breathing, you're giving your mind time to process in the background what's going on, because you're counting, you're digging in, you're thinking, and I do that. I close my eyes and I breathe, and I'm only focused on breathing and counting. And it just gives your body a little bit of time to comprehend what's going on, settle down, and then gives your mind a little bit of time to unwind, figure out what's going on, and figure out how to react. So disconnecting through breathing exercises is probably my number 1 tip. Awesome. Any other questions?
Yeah, and walking without pushing.
Can talking with others help you alleviate stress? Depends who you talk to. I have friends who are perfect for those situations. My husband is the number 1 person you want to talk to if you're stressed out. He is the calmest person I've ever met. He just helps you kind of talk through it, and then, makes you laugh along the way. He'll say something funny and you're kind of relaxed and talking to. One of my best friends is the worst person because she gets as mad as you are and she's ready to fight. I really think it's, sometimes you want to have a warrior, sometimes you want to talk to a lighthearted. It depends on if you need encouragement to go out there and stand for what you believe in, or if you need somebody to make you laugh. So yeah, pick wisely who you talk to at the moment.
And what about physical activity? You mentioned it as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Walking. Well, and by physical activity, everyone is has their own comfort level, and you don't want the physical activity to be the thing also stressing you out. But it could be something, if you're not, it's if you haven't been walking, maybe just taking a few steps, just going outside, feeling the sun on your skin. If you're a very active person, then maybe it's pushing yourself a little bit more, but just getting out there. So you can find sitting in the sun for me even. So anything that kind of makes your body a little bit more in different positions. So if you've been sitting all day, maybe standing up even for 5 minutes. If you've been and you can't stand up, feel free to lay down, but just to change even the physical position of your body will help. Awesome. Well, if there's no more questions, I will say goodbye to everyone. Please join us on upend.com and listen to much wiser people speak about much deeper things. And thank you for joining me today for this happy hour. And for our session 2, we'll see you in a few hours. everyone.
Bye-bye.